And you know what this big designer said to me when I asked them about marking distance? They said, yo, I can't believe Luca did that. The biggest underground fashion brands in the world, as we speak, are locked in a mortal battle.
Fatality.
For what? For your wallet, but also other things, I'm sure. No, listen, for real, there are a lot of pretenders to the throne out there because this world, the world we're talking about in this video, is a solar system of brands all orbiting around one very, very bright sun. The brand Enfants Riches Deprimes, often referred to as ERD, is looked at as the standard bearer in this very, very weirdly popular style of underground fashion, which is one that is heavily distressed, heavily treated, vintage style t-shirts, hoodies, jeans, things like that, all based around, I don't know, heroin addiction, punk music, cult cinema, weird esoteric political movements, all of the above. And Enfants Riches Deprimes have proven themselves to be incredibly, incredibly popular, despite being absurdly expensive. A single t-shirt by Enfants Riches Deprimes can cost as much as $1,000 US. So no matter how much you may not like ERD, and many people do not like them, which I'm sure we'll get into, they are doing what they do very well. Now, I didn't mention battle though, right? I definitely heard something about battling, and that's what's most interesting, right? So if ERD are the sun in this solar system here, there are many planets orbiting them, kind of battling for position. I would say actually one of ERD's biggest competitors in this lane is St. Michael, a US-Japanese hybrid brand that has made a very good name for themselves, but they kind of stand apart in their own lane a bit, so I'm not going to focus on them in this video. I would say the next biggest competitor to ERD, the one trying to catch up to ERD as the market leader, is Pali Hollywood. Some of you may know how much I love the consignment site, The RealReal. Well, first-time sellers can get $100 in-site credit when you sell something with a value of $200 or more. Get that money, and then break off a little piece of that hundo to join the Patreon, get exclusive videos, exclusive Discord access, private sales, and more. Link in the description. Now, this is not the first time I've talked about Pali, or even this second, so let me rewind real quick, because Pali I first found out about a couple years ago when I went to Patron of the New, a store that stocks many of these brands we'll be talking about, and saw some pieces that looked absurdly, shockingly, suspiciously similar to ERD pieces. So I got a closer look and I was like, okay, Pali, what is that? Well, apparently it is a brand run by Kyle Lindgren and the semi-disgraced former actor James Franco. So immediately you're getting hints of Nepo baby industry plant energy. Whether that's fair or not is just the vibe that you get. But there's also some very weird stuff in there as well. For instance, their retail tags that came with their pieces were like near identical in the verbiage to ERD's, which was very, very specific verbiage. It was just weird and kind of off-putting. But despite that, the pieces were pretty cool. They had a really interesting wide but cropped fit. They were heavily treated and washed, enzyme washed, stone washed, whatever the case may be. The graphics were quite good, and they had a really, really nice single stitch made in USA construction, which, to take a quick aside, well, I don't know why we all started caring about single stitch so much. You would think that the classic reinforced stitch would be better if there's more stitches, right? Apparently they're stronger, but no, we all prefer single stitch these days, and I'm one of them. I cannot lie. But anyway, from these very inauspicious ERD clone beginnings, I was keeping a close eye on Pali Hollywood because they were the brand I was looking at to break out and do their own thing in kind of parallel to ERD rather than chasing behind them. But I have to say, you guys, Pali never broke out of that chase. No matter what they do, they still feel like ERD's little brother. For instance, Pali made their name doing these James Dean death cult hats, and to this day, Pali still does those hats. ERD doesn't reprint stuff. Pali is more than happy to make all the James Dean death cult hats they have. And listen, they're still making lots of other hats that are very much similar to the James Dean Death Cult one, trying to recreate that magic again. Their pieces, they don't look identical to ERD. ERD is much more, I think, focused in their graphic design, whereas Pali, their graphic design kind of has the vibe of like a middle schooler's school notebook, I would say, just filled with the doodles. It's almost like trying too hard. Like the pieces, they are covered in art in every little nook and cranny, and it's almost like the designers were thinking,
if only we can squeeze one more doodle underneath the armpit, then maybe we'll sell a couple more units here, okay? Maybe we'll finally get stocked at Maxfield.
Which, side note, Maxfield is one of the other major stores that stocks a lot of these brands, and a little birdie told me that Maxfield refused to stock Pali due to how similar they were to ERD, but maybe that's another story for another day for another person to tell, because my lips are sealed. But despite all that, I really try to like Pali. I want ERD to have a good competitor, one that is doing stuff from an authentic place of high quality. So let me show you some Pali pieces that I've got, some I've gotten more recently, and you can be the judge for yourself. So I would say most Pali pieces have this vibe. And sometimes that's cool, like sure, cool references like Scorpio Rising, right? But it's just like, oh my God, we got space on the screen still. Let's get one more doodle in there, one more piece of text. Let's make sure we put those rhinestones on, show the people what's what, show them that our stuff is worth the money. We put in the work. Person, text, doodle, logo, rhinestone. Go, go, go. When in reality, my favorite Pali tee is this one. Simple graphic at the front with an incredible striking photo and bit of text, well designed at the back. That's all it takes. This was the piece that when I saw it at Patron of the New, I was like, I want this and I want to know more about this brand. But this is the kind of stuff that they don't really do anymore. And that makes me sad because I like it. But then the stuff that sells are absolutely, unquestionably the pieces like this. So this is a very limited piece that they made as part of a capsule for Ma Maison, which was a Hollywood restaurant known for its debauchery, and also Wolfgang Puck, weirdly. I'm not like an expert on Hollywood eateries. It's just that this is what Pali is good at, is finding these little pieces of Hollywood ephemera and blasting them out into this fashion realm. And I do appreciate that. That's cool. And then the other thing is, this one has hand-done writing, doodling by James Franco himself that he did by hand, along with, I'm guessing, whatever else you see going on here. But you've got so many elements. You've got the puffy embroidery, the God Help Bobby and Helen print underneath, the James Franco writing here, all of the distressing painting, sun fading, embroidery on the side, which it backwards says Panic in Pacino Park, and this photo at the back. So even though I do like this piece, and this is kind of my issue with Pali, is that I do still like it, I think, is that it's just overstuffed. Like the Ma Maison with the Hollywood lore should have been able to sell this piece on its own. Just having hand-done writing by James Franco should have been able to sell this hat. Just a reference to Pacino, to some people I'm sure would have sold the hat, but it really feels like they're trying to overstuff it all the way in order to kind of stack those selling points and really convince you to buy it. They feel like they're doing some extra convincing here. But the thing is, when you're looking at a piece that is limited to 75 by a fairly iconic artist, actor, if you consider actors artists, and I do, then to some degree you can't help but be sucked in by the allure of it all. And that kind of mirrors Hollywood in its own weird way. So listen, there is some good, there's some bad, there's some ugly, but if you're really looking, there is stuff to like. But let me tell you where I actually just fell off entirely on Pali Hollywood, and that is the Pali Hollywood car. Yeah, that's right. The reason I'm out on a fashion brand is because of a car. Yeah, so ERD, they did a car themselves, and they wrapped it or decorated it in naloxone, like a buprenorphine type stuff, which is a treatment for heroin or opiate addiction, something I am very, very familiar with. I know that medication well. So I thought that car was actually pretty cool and spoke very cleanly toward the point of view of Enfants Riches Deprimes. But Pali, they started doing some pop-ups over the past few months. For instance, they went to Complex Con, which is one of the hype beastiest places on the planet Earth. They did a pop-up at Patron of the New, the store. And in order to get to these pop-ups and to help decorate and add to the ambiance, Pali created their own decorated car. And guess what? It's also covered in pharmaceutical logos such as Ozempic and Valium. And really, this just speaks to the entire problem I have with Pali Hollywood, which is ERD's is clean and from a single point of view, whereas Pali's, they're just going over the top. They're throwing in every reference, every kind of cinematic, pharmaceutical, musical reference they can to show
We're cool. We get it. We've done drugs. We listen to cool music. We watch cool movies. James Franco's in the brand, for God's sake.
But at a certain point, trying too hard comes off like you're trying too hard. It becomes transparent. So, listen, is it cool to have pieces that have been doodled on by James Franco himself? Yes, it is. I have fallen into that many times before. I've got a couple pieces like that. It does have a bit of an aura to it. But beyond that, man, Pali Hollywood, it's been a couple years. You've been hammering at this aesthetic, and I would really love to see you refine it a bit more. Not to mention that the categories they're focusing on are still just as simple: t-shirts, hoodies, leather jackets, canvas double knees, yada yada. Try to refine it a little bit more, take it up a notch. If you do a runway, I would be very curious to see what you could do at a more refined level. But man, Pali Hollywood is just failure to launch. So ERD is at the top of the pack. They're killing it. Pali is close behind, trying to chase them. But you know what I think maybe the worst place to be in all this is? A brand that's just trying to make that name for yourself at all, get any recognition in this realm whatsoever. And I think that is where the brand Marking Distance stands. Now, if you have never heard of Marking Distance before, God bless you. I wish I were you, but let me tell you all about them. So they are a brand that launched just a couple years ago, so they're very, very new in the grand scheme of things. And they were founded by this guy, James Pierce, and Luca Sabat. Sabat? I don't know. Luca. Now, if you don't know Luca, he is a massive, fashion mega influencer. He's worked with many of the biggest brands on earth, and he decided it was finally time to launch his own brand.
So, we can do this the nice way, or we can do it the hard way, and I can release my bipolar.
A couple years back, he was seen quite often mingling with the ERD folks, the designers for that brand, the people that run the brand. He was cozying up to them, learning the tricks of the trade, and then he staked his claim, said,
I'm gonna get in on this underground, drug-addicted, punk rock, weirdo, fetish realm of fashion.
Again, it's still blowing my mind that this is what's popular now. But anyway, can you start from more of an industry plant place than being an influencer brand? I feel like when you are starting an influencer brand, you have to work 10 times harder to prove that, no, this is the real deal. I belong here. This stuff is legit. And Marking Distance, man, they don't make it the distance.
He's going the distance. He's going for speed.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I said that.
But no, here's my issue. Marking Distance, their pieces, at least some of them, in a vacuum, I would actually like quite a bit. For instance, there's this officer shirt that looks cool. The treatments are nice. I like the look of the fabrication, the kind of fading, distressing. It has an old military surplus type of look, but at the same time, with a retail price of thousands of dollars, when it's a piece that looks like you could get it at an Army Navy surplus store and then go treat with stuff you could find at your local Home Depot, no, it's just not going to happen. I'm not going to do that. Now, your rebuttal may be that ERD is absurdly expensive, but let me tell you, ERD earned it. You may not think so, but they did. They started off doing very limited runs of things, selling t-shirts for a couple $100. And yes, that is still a lot for a t-shirt, but it is not $800 for a t-shirt right off the bat. In Marking Distance, they talk a big game, okay, about like, Japanese design and craft.
There's food, alright, no.
And crust punk stuff, but the pieces, they're just made in Italy. They really look to me like they were maybe made in the same factory that ERD uses for their Italian stuff. Like, there's even this pinstripe double-breasted blazer that Marking Distance does that truly, oh my god, it looks identical to the ERD blazer of the similar style. It's like shocking. They've got a $4,000 trench coat. You know what the fabrication on that is? Cotton polyamide. Weak sauce, dude. ERD just a couple years ago would have been selling a full leather trench coat for that amount. And again, ERD has done the work to get to that pricing level. They've proven that they belong in this marketplace and that customers are willing to bear that pricing. It's free market economics.
The housing bubble rise of China. Taxes are front rank issue. Blue collar job.
You know what I mean? You might not like it. It may be a communist, whatever, anti-capitalist, but the market in this current world decides what things are worth. And if the Marking Distance stuff is anything to go by, people are not buying that price point because the stuff is going on sale, you feel me? Let me tell you something about Marking Distance that honestly has shocked me, and I'm hard to shock. I was talking to a designer who's very, very big, very large in this space, well-renowned, well-established, and somebody who I would say usually keeps their head above the drama. They're very even-handed, neutral, fair. They're kind of like known for that. And I had a conversation with them about Marking Distance. I was like, well, what do you think of that? Is it, yeah. And you know what this big designer said to me when I asked them about Marking Distance? They said, yo, I can't believe Luca did that. Now for this person, that's the equivalent of them taking gasoline, pouring it on your family home, and setting it ablaze with your entire family inside. That was a spicy statement right there. But I get what they mean. It's kind of transparent. You see what Luca's trying to do, and his partner James Pierce in this, and it's just so see-through. They haven't earned it, and it doesn't feel authentic. Now, this designer also threw in one more tidbit that I had to include because it's so good. I actually tried looking this up and I couldn't find it, so this may not be true at all. But they relayed this story of Vivienne Westwood. She had a shop called Sex back in the late 70s, early 80s, and down the street was a store called Boy that basically ripped off Vivienne Westwood's designs all the time. And apparently Vivienne Westwood at one point said, listen, I guess we just gotta set our store on fire because then they'll do the same thing. That is how transparently this person feels that Marking Distance is ripping off ERD. It's not a secret to anybody. They're not hiding it well if they were ever trying to hide it at all. I wanna like this stuff, but just start over, start from a lower price point, work your way up, earn it. And the one other thing that bothers me about Marking Distance is the entire aesthetic seems confused. Like on the one hand, it has this very vintage military type of feel, but then on the other hand, they do this weird fetishistic type thing, like tee-hee nipple clamp type stuff in a way that feels much cheaper. Like I could see it working, but to me, their implementation, it feels more like some of these lower end, more slightly whimsical weird brands, like maybe Hood by Air or even MM6. Maison Margiela does stuff kind of like this. But you'll have this very self-serious crust punk denim work or leather work, but then they'll have these cropped cheerleader shirts where it's kind of
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I a man that actually kind of looks like a girl? Oopsie.
And it has this just kind of lame 4chan type of energy to it or something in this gender-bendy way. Now, I know we looked at some Pali stuff, but we are not going to be looking at any Marking Distance stuff because, like I said, there is no way they are going to convince me to look at this price point, all right? Because I go out of pocket for this stuff. Listen, if Marking Distance wants to prove me wrong, send me something. I will look at it. I'll even send it back to you. I don't even need to keep it. But if you want me to get that actual up-close look, if you think I can change my mind, hit me up. I'm willing to do that. one other brand that gets brought up a lot when I talk about like stylist core, ERD clones or whatever, like, is Bossy. Wild name, right? I know it's kind of in your face, Bossy. But people begged me, make a video about Bossy. Come on, skewer Bossy, show them what's what. But here's the thing. I understand why people might not like Bossy, but I respect the hell out of it. I don't know Bossy very well. I don't know I just know that they've been around for a long time, and the pieces that I've gotten, even when I don't respond to them directly, I respect them. I can see the work that's gone in. I see the perspective. They've laid out their path, and I think it's very, very separate from the ERD path that's been going on here. Real quick, let me show you what I mean. So I think what people are really asking or trying to find out when they ask if a designer is like authentic or legit, what they really want to know is, does this designer actually care about what they're doing? Do they have pride in it? Or are they just trying to make a buck off of hypebeast kids who don't know better? And I think all of the people asking me to do a Bossy video had the idea that maybe he was the second. But first of all, he's been doing those kind of like rhinestoned out vintage tees, upcycled vintage thing longer than pretty much anyone else in that realm, I think. But then you've got pieces like this. This one like super sold me. So it's a pair of canvas double knees. He does these weird like rainbow kind of treated metal hardware, which is always interesting to me. But you've got these tie-dye double knee patches, obviously like the carpenter hammer loop at the side. It is exactly the kind of piece you could see on the shelves of Patron of the New. So why did this sell me? Well, look at this, Bossy, East Boston, Massachusetts. On the care tags, it says, proudly produced by Sterlingware of Boston. So of course, I look up Sterlingware, and they are a Boston-based manufacturing company, garment manufacturing. They were probably best known for having a big like military contract doing wool coats for them that apparently were very well-liked, and then things were going kind of bad, but then during COVID, they started doing protective gear, and they had like a second life, but then apparently since then, they closed. But luckily for Bossy, who based on this stuff I'm assuming is from the New England area, as am I, respect, he had the good fortune to partner with them before they closed to make at least these pants, if not other things as well. And that's how I know Bossy is legit to at least some degree, because if he didn't care at all, he would be finding the cheapest LA-based factory he could, like all of these other brands are, but instead, he's finding a manufacturer from his neck of the woods, somebody with respect in clothing manufacturing, a history, and I think that's sick and shows some true colors, you know? Now, you may have heard me say earlier that Enfants Riches Deprimes have earned it. They've earned their place in the modern fashion landscape. They've earned their position at the top of the pack, whereas some of these other brands like Marking Distance maybe haven't done that work and haven't earned it. And you might be behind your computer screen at the TV screaming, yelling, no, they haven't. ERD, they're a bunch of posers,
They're a bunch of pussies, they're a bunch of fucking
Sorry, went too far. Sorry. Well, I say, yes, ERD has earned their spot. They've put in the hard work, the hours, the years to get to this spot. Like they did when they made this hoodie over a decade ago. Kind of. I mean, they did make this hoodie, but they also kind of didn't. And that's a story I was hoping to tell in this video, but it's just too good a story to leave to the end of this existing video. So that's going to be the next video. Make sure you get subscribed, make sure you watch, because the story around this stuff and other pieces like it in the early days of ERD are crazy. And I don't know if you know the full story, but that's next time. So we have got ERD at the center of the solar system, Pali closely orbiting. Further out, you've got Marking Distance. Now, what's at the outer bounds of this galaxy? Okay, well, there are a whole lot of brands, and most of them are kind of like TikTok hypey garbage. They're like, oh, ERD is popular. I will rip up my t-shirts and do the single stitch and sell them, and thank you. But there are some really trying to make it work. So when I go out shopping, it's usually in Miami. That's when I have the best chance to go to these stores that stock this kind of like stylist core type ERD worship stuff. So I'll go to Patron of the New, as I've talked about, and I will also go to a shop called Market that is across the street. And I'll just say up front, I really like Market. I like the stuff they stock. I like the people that work there and the people that own it. I think they're actually always trying to find what's hot and what's new in fashion. They're kind of at the vanguard of trying to find these new brands. Like the brands that are getting stocked at Patron of the New or even Maxfield, they're more established, whereas Market will bring in stuff when it's like brand new just to try it out and see if it works. But that leads to some misses because the store Market, they're kind of acting as an incubator for these stylist core ERD worship brands. So one time I went in recently and I saw some pieces, okay? It was kind of a very ERD-esque type of piece with the wash and the single stitch and the kind of cracked up graphic. And I saw it was by a brand called Aircollay Studio. Now, I have never heard of this brand, so I asked the guy who was working there, hey, what brand is this? And he was like, I don't know, it's from LA. And I kind of waited for him to say more, but that was all he said. So I was like, yeah, so what? They're from LA. What else? I don't know, man. This stuff kind of just came in from LA. They sent it over and we got it now. Okay, LA, that's what we know. So it does have a kind of different perspective than ERD, and the graphics more of like a tarot. It's just a little bit more like occult and shamanistic in its approach, and I did respond to that. I thought it was more interesting than a lot of these upstart ERD clone brands have been lately, and I don't know, here's the thing. It doesn't feel like they actually want to be doing this, is the thing. For instance, this brand Aircollay Studio, they also had jeans by them, which were all like nautical with this rope at the waist and this kind of like shark metal wallet chain thing. And listen, it was one of the ugliest things I've ever seen, but it definitely felt more authentic to what this brand was trying to do. Whereas the t-shirts and stuff, it felt like something they had to do in order to get their foot in the door and make a few sales so that they can do what they actually want to do. So let me show you these Aircollay Studio pieces. So I kind of feel bad that at a very superficial level, I kind of love this. Like the wash is really nice on a super thin and light cotton. It feels great. I love the contrast of that single stitch. Like the shirt is so washed that it's like a gray blue, but then the stitches are still black and it really makes them pop. That neck feels distressed in a very authentic way to me. And the hem is cut in a way that also feels very natural and kind of quick and necessary. And I like the way that the wash is kind of lightened as it gets towards the hem here. And then you get quite a striking graphic, one that I'm really into, but that does have that kind of Mother Nature-y kind of like spirit child vibe. So I think the graphic is very dark. It's like a trailer home burning down with a woman in front of it in silhouette. Really cool, but then underneath, just as a candle cannot burn without fire, life cannot thrive without spirit. So interesting juxtaposition of dark and negative versus like hopeful and positive. It's a nice tag here, thick stitching, and this one is made in Los Angeles specifically, as if I wouldn't be able to tell from the vibe. I'm very curious what the imported components are. That's a little sketch, but sometimes that means like nice stuff from Japan, other times it means crap stuff from China, you know, you never know. But then this tag with like the shell and the wax, and even that logo at the neck, it's just such a different aesthetic than what they're putting out on the piece itself that I feel like there's an incongruousness. And when I look at the higher end pieces that this brand is making, I don't know if this is what they want to be doing. It's just what sells, like it did for me. Now this is a cut-off tank top sweatshirt. And my first thought on that is like, no, be gone, Rivington Demon. Really though, that cut does kind of remind me of the RRR123 stuff, which is one of my least favorite brands in this lane, but I will choose to ignore it. Let's give this its own time of day. To me, it looks to be a very similarly well-made, well-treated piece of clothing. I like the raglan sleeves that are clearly very cut off. Really nice terry inside, and a similarly rolled cut-off hem. To me, it really does have the feel of a vintage garment, which is sometimes hard to pull off for these brands. And the graphic on this one, similarly, I don't know, nature-y, like it doesn't have the same darkness that an ERD graphic might have, or a Pali graphic, right? Sleeping waters. It's kind of hopeful in a way. A woman under the moonlight in the water. You could take it in a negative way. It could be seen as creepy, right? But I don't know, there's something with a positivity, a positive creepiness about it. So I think at this point what I'm getting at is that I really welcome anybody coming into this lane from a different perspective, which I think this does have, but I almost think it's too incongruous. I would like to see them trying to create their own lane perhaps, instead of trying to butt their way into the punk, vintage, distressed, yada yada lane. So at the end of the day, what I'm hearing more and more from the people that work in this industry, work at these stores, design for these brands, they're kind of over this hype cycle. They recognize that ERD got crazy big and that everyone's chasing it, but ERD kind of won this battle. No one else seems to be able to fight at the same level. But despite that, brands are trying. And the people watching, they're just like, please get it over with so we can move on to the next big thing. Sure, okay, we've got single stitch t-shirts, hyper washed, enzyme washed. Who's gonna be the standard bearer in denim, in knitwear, in any of these other categories? Because they're wide open while everybody is trying to win in t-shirts and hoodies. And that's like the end of the road here. So let me know what you think is next. Let me know what you think of these brands. Have I missed anybody? Is there anybody in these lanes that I really need to be talking about? Make sure you join the Patreon. I'll see you next time. Peace.